it's a privilege to be able to lead a division in a continental think tank and an institution that has probably one of the greatest platforms to have an impact on the policy design, policy implementation within the continent, and much more importantly, the fact that when this commission was formed, the Economic Commission for Africa, a key part of its mandate is regional cooperation for socio-economic development of the continent. And so to be given the opportunity to be the director for the division that works at the heart of that pillar or that mandate of the Economic Commission for Africa, I think it makes me feel good, but at the same time it also weighs that responsibility, ways so that you make sure that you do the right thing by making sure that you give the best advice and options and support to the African Union and its member states. When I joined the Economic Commission for Africa, that's about 20 years ago, the question was, how do we ensure that Africa gets the most out of the global trading system? How do we overcome the marginalization? How do we ensure that the African countries not only take advantage of the comparative advantages that they have in some sectors like agriculture, specifically issues like cotton, but at the same time, how do they get market access so that when they add value to their commodities, they do not have this situation of what we call additional tariffs, tariff escalation. So that was the situation. There was so much potential in intra-African trade that could be an answer to this question of our productivity if we deepened the market, the continental market. So this is a long way to answer your question, that I think Africa is actually in the right trajectory when it comes to trade. It has laid a good foundation for the economies to benefit from trade, and through the deepening of the market integration that we are seeing, especially through the Continental Free Trade Area, the work of the regional economic communities, I think we are creating, or at least we have created a shock absorber, because we are likely to see significant geopolitical upheavals in terms of international trade. And I think Africa has prepared itself in terms of policy, coordination, to be at play and take the opportunities that might come out of this situation. Well, that's a good question, and I would like to frame that question. To answer that question, first of all, by looking at what is our experience as a continent, or even globally, with trade negotiations. First, the AfCFTA brings together 55 AU member states. It's the second largest in terms of numbers of members in the negotiation after the WTO. And that has not only been realized, but it was realized in a very fast way. Two, all the protocols that were part of the mandate for the negotiators, for the negotiations of the AfCFTA, all of them have been done. And we will be seeing this next coming month further endorsement of annexes, especially in the area of digital trade, that will be advancing the agreement. So in the first instance, I would want to say, I think the achievement of the continent in getting this agreement in place, I think that is something that's a positive thing that I think all of us need to celebrate. But that matters only if the common people, you know, who are walking here in Kasanchis, or you go to Nairobi, or you go to Lagos, if, first of all, their incomes are rising, first, because there are jobs that are coming out of the services and goods and investments that are arising out of the AfCFTA. That's the first thing. And two, even where the incomes have not risen because maybe that country is yet to develop the capacity to do the production, at least because you have brought down the barriers, both tariff and non-tariff barriers. The other day, I went to, those of us who live in Addis Ababa, we are familiar with a supermarket called Bambi's. I went there and found a packet of milk from Kenya. It was against another packet of milk from the UAE. And I know the price of this 1 liter of milk from Nairobi. And what surprised me was the huge gap between the price, the milk from Kenya, which is just next door to Ethiopia, was priced at the same price as the milk from the UAE. And so what I was asking myself, what could be the contributing factor to this huge gap between the same packet of milk in Ethiopia and the same packet of milk in Kenya? It's a question of transport costs, maybe things to do with the standards, you know, the things that you pay because this is a consumable, and maybe tariffs. And the AfCFTA is supposed to tackle that, so that now so in other words, I'm saying the AfCFTA is yet to tackle that, because any Ethiopian consumer should be able to go and be able to get choose now the Kenyan one as opposed to the one from the UAE, because the AfCFTA has addressed the challenge of competitiveness of the African products within this market. But having said that, I think over the last almost 2 years, we have witnessed countries under the Guided Trade Initiative. They have actually been exporting products to each other. I think if you talk to the Ethiopian Airlines, and I think this is a question for us as an institution, I'm sure the trade that they have actually been having as part of their cargo movement of goods that are actually related to the trade of the tea from Kenya, from Rwanda, or things from Rwanda to West Africa, or things from West Africa to Central Africa. But we have not yet attained the scale that would have that impact, such that our shopping basket, the cost of our shopping basket would come down because of the AfCFTA. I think first and foremost, if you sign an agreement, the most important thing is for the country signing to change its laws and regulations so that the customs official will not say that this good cannot come in to this country, or if it comes into this country, you have to pay or you don't have to pay this amount of duty. So first and foremost, even before we talk about productive capacity and we talk about the issues of connected markets, first and foremost, countries through their ministers of finance, their ministers of industries and investments, agriculture ministers, they have to what we call transpose, or rather domesticate the agreement. And I don't think that has been done by all the state parties that have ratified the agreement. You recall that one of the criteria of the guided trade initiative was you needed to, first of all, ratify, but at the same time, you also needed to domesticate so that you can be able to issue what we call the certificate of origin, or rather the AfCFTA certificate of origin. Now, without an AfCFTA certificate of origin, which requires changes, legal changes at the domestic level, it becomes difficult for the private sector to take advantage of the market opening of the AfCFTA. So for me, first and foremost, we should insist and ensure and advocate and encourage all the 48 countries that have ratified the agreement to go back into their law book, their customs administration, their books, and indicate that this good, this shoe, manufactured in Ethiopia, meets the rules of origin that make it a made in the AfCFTA, so to speak, good, and it can go to any part of the continent. So that, for me, I think is the biggest issue. And then, of course, after that, I think the issues to do with information. I think the private sector is not at the same level of awareness as to the policymakers. And in fact, if you talk to a lot of African citizens, you ask them, "Oh, are you aware of World Trade Organization?" They'll tell you yes. Sure. When you ask them, "Are you aware of the African Continental Free Trade Area?" They will tell you no. Yeah. So there is also that huge awareness gap that we need to address, and because that gap is also locking that, addressing that gap would also unlock the opportunities, especially for the SMEs, because some of the people who will say, "Oh, you mean there is something called the AfCFTA?" Just to give you an example, last year there was an exhibition at the Millennium Hall here in Addis Ababa, and it was on the pharma sector. And as you know, under one of the sectors that Africa has a huge opportunity to grow under the AfCFTA is the health sector, including especially the components of the pharmaceutical sector. So the Ethiopian government, the Ethiopian institutions had put this exhibition. So I went there, and first of all, I was quite amazed. First, in terms of the pharmaceutical products, in terms of tools and instruments for diagnostics and also for using in the medical profession that are actually made here, including scanners. If you go, those the one that when you want to see how the baby is doing, ultrasound machines that are actually made here, or at least assembled here, and meet the threshold of what you'd call the AfCFTA rules of origin. And so every stand I went, I asked the person, are you aware of the AfCFTA? And some of them would tell me no. And then I'll tell them, do you know what you are producing here? Under the AfCFTA, you can actually be able to sell it to other African countries. So some of them told me they even sell, and they are even trading some of those medicines and some of those diagnostics tools to the rest of the continent. But they don't always, they were not talking in the context of the AfCFTA. So this is to say there is also a huge information gap, even before we come and talking about how do we harmonize our standards, which is part of the agreement. How do we create connectivity so that we reduce the transport costs? There are some things that needs to be done on the ground in each country, and when we reach the appropriate scale, the private sector would always find its way of dealing with everything else. Absolutely. It's painful. I mean, it's painful to be unable to move across the continent as an African citizen. So besides the free movement of people protocol, I think you've heard about the African passport. Sure. Which is also part of the Agenda 2063. And when you have someone who is creating job opportunities across the continent and is not able to go and have those important conversations that could lead to the closing of deals, investment deals, not necessarily with the government, but with other private sector actors in the countries that he or she wants to visit. I mean, it's painful. I would want to say that we are shooting ourselves on the foot when it comes to this question of integration. The regional integration gives us such a huge opportunity, the potential to address the challenges we are having with youth unemployment, lack of diversification. Regional integration is there, and in fact, the forefathers or the architects of the Abuja Treaty, even before them, you know, we just opened, they have reinaugurated the Africa Hall here. And if you go there, you'll see some of the statements that were made by the heads of state there. They foresaw that for this continent to create the opportunities and unlock the opportunities that it has, you really need to have a deeper integration. And that deeper integration only matters if it affects people positively. And so when you see in the social media African citizens complaining of the treatment they get or the amount of time they spend looking for a visa, it's painful, I have to say. And I think if there is one thing I was to ask as an African citizen, please, let's open up these borders so that Africans can move freely. And if we cannot open it up for everyone, at least facilitate those who are creating opportunities. But why can't we, given that we are living in a digital era? I mean, how difficult is it to leverage digitalization to be able to deal with the underlying security question that is usually the question as to why some, countries don't want to ratify the movement of people. Because I don't want to believe that the issue is that you think that another African will come and take a job in your country. I think the main issue, based on the work we have been doing with the African Union Commission, trying to visit countries and try to understand why they haven't ratified. Security comes at the heart. And my point is, in this era of digitalization, with digital identities, possibilities of having interoperable digital identity systems, why can't we be able to do it? Oh, first of all, I think I mentioned security, but I think also there is an issue of approach to dealing with the issue of free movement of people for the African continent, because you find that the ministers of the interior who deal with the homeland security, and then the minister of trade who is going out there and saying, you know, I want more trade, and then also the minister for finance, who in some cases is also interested with the question of revenues related to visas. I think there is my assessment is that everyone needs to come on the table and say that and understand that if we open up this space, we would be at a higher equilibrium than if we keep to the different sub objectives of closing or making it, you know, difficult for people to travel. But that's just the assessment. Now, for ECA, what is it that we are doing? I've just hinted that, in fact, we have an ongoing project on the free movement of people with the African Union Commission. And what we've been doing is, I think last year we went to Zambia, we went to Kenya, we went to Ghana, and essentially it was basically, first of all, to not only understand the underlying reasons, because those countries that I've mentioned, none of them has ratified the free movement of people protocol, but also try to show with evidence how those that have made it easier for others to travel, they have not had higher security challenges than those who have not ratified, and they have not even had an influx of everybody wanting to come to those. So for us, it's basically to share experiences, while at the same time advocating that all these other important continental projects, including the opening up of travel under the AfCFTA services trade, we cannot be able to unlock the full potential of tourism if you have to spend so much time and money to get a visa. Africa is, I think, I am an optimist, and I know you have both optimists and pessimists. But looking at the numbers of what is going on in the world today, the opportunity is there for Africa even to raise its position within the global space. But this is going to require everyone to pull together and not to feel helpless, because I think Africa has everything it needs. Industrialization trend, urbanization, and not to feel helpless, because I think Africa has everything it needs. Industrialization trend, urbanization, resources. So I think it's a matter of just pulling everything together and taking this moment. Thank you.